Are you struggling with your CPAP therapy? There is an FDA-approved therapy that can replace your CPAP unit with an implantable device for an entirely different treatment experience. On today's episode, we will discuss Inspire therapy for sleep apnea. I'm Jay, and this is Somnilopod. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's been a couple of weeks. I apologize. I have been swamped at my full-time job, so I just haven't had the time or the energy to be able to do anything more. But I am back this week with an interesting episode on a different type of treatment for a disorder that is very common called obstructive sleep apnea. Now, we have discussed sleep apnea and some of the main treatment methods for it in the past. Just as a recap, what happens with obstructive sleep apnea as the body goes to sleep and the muscle tone starts to relax, in some of us, that muscle tone actually relaxes to the point where our airway, our upper airway, starts to close off. So that's the obstructive part. Sometimes it is a complete obstruction, sometimes it's a partial obstruction, but both of these types of apnea have the same effect on a system. They cause sleep disruption. They cause decreases in the oxygen in the blood. A lot of times patients will wake up because of the sleep disruption, just extremely fatigued during the day. It also puts a lot of extra stress on the cardiovascular system, the heart and the lungs. So it can lead, if untreated, to situations where you have increased risk of cardiovascular issues like heart attack and stroke. With the majority of patients, 2/3 of patients. So if you are like 2/3 of the patients on CPAP therapy like myself, then you don't really have any problems. You put your mask on, you wear it every night, your apnea is taken care of, and all is right with the world. However, there are about a third of the patients on CPAP therapy that, for whatever reason, they simply do not tolerate being able to wear the therapy. Now, the CPAP therapy, CPAP stands for continuous positive airway pressure, and it is a small mask that the patient wears while they're sleeping that covers the nose. Sometimes it also covers the mouth as well, and it just uses room air to blow air in through the device so that when that muscle tone relaxes, the airway doesn't close off. So you can imagine that some people simply aren't able to do that. A lot of patients that have issues with claustrophobia, some patients that even have had issues with reconstructive surgery on their face. They've had a broken nose and they just can't breathe through their nose. Or if they've had issues where they've been in a car accident and they just have a lot of sensitivity on their face. They can't handle having something on their face like that. And sometimes it's not an issue of the mask itself. Sometimes it's an issue of the pressure. In some patients, they just simply cannot tolerate the way that pressure feels to inhale and to exhale with. Now, it can be done to try to make the therapy more comfortable. We can switch to different types of masks. We can adjust the pressure and the way the pressure is delivered. But still, there are 1/3 of people that just don't tolerate. Fortunately, there are alternatives to this therapy, and there is a relatively new therapy that is gaining ground and popularity with a lot of patients. It is called Inspire therapy, and basically it is an implantable device, sort of like a pacemaker, that helps to keep the airway open at night while we're sleeping. Now, Inspire was FDA approved in the United States in 2014, and it was just recently approved in Australia as well in 2001. And it is basically a device that connects to one of the nerves in your throat, the hypoglossal nerve. And what it does, it stimulates that nerve where it attaches to the base of your tongue. And when that nerve is stimulated, it causes the muscle tone in the back of your throat and in your tongue to actually tighten. So it opens the airway whenever it receives stimulation. And the device, which is located typically under the right clavicle on your chest, also connects to the intercostal muscles between your ribs. So it can tell when you're taking a breath. So with each breath you take, when the device is activated, it stimulates the back of the throat and the back base of your tongue. So it opens up the airway with each breath that is taken. It's really fascinating. A lot of patients will report, just like with any type of therapy, that it just feels really weird. And it is interesting to see when patients first have their unit activated, just their reaction to it. We through my main job with the Sleep Disorder Center, we do the implantation and activation of these devices. And it's really interesting to see patients react that first time, because basically it looks like you're sticking your tongue out. So when you first activate it, it pushes the tongue forward, and people just feel really odd with that. Now, this type of therapy is not for everyone. Not everyone actually qualifies for it. Fortunately, they have a really good website. It's inspiresleep.com. Check that website out. They have a lot of information and a lot of patient tutorials that talk about people who have had the device implanted and how they have been able to react to it and what their experience has been. They also have a method to see if you do indeed qualify to be able to have the device implanted. Now, some things that would disqualify a patient. Extremely severe sleep apnea. Sleep apnea that is above, for example, around 45 events per hour wouldn't necessarily qualify. Also, if you have body mass index, a BMI rate that is above around 34, because sometimes there's just too much adipose tissue in the throat. The throat is just too small for the Inspire device to be able to keep the airway open. But they have a series of questions that you can answer through their website, and it'll let you know whether or not you qualify or not to be able to have that device implanted. Now, typically what you will see, if this is a therapy that you are interested in exploring, usually you will meet with either a sleep specialist or an ear, nose, and throat specialist. Typically, the ear, nose, and throat specialist will be the ones that will determine whether you qualify and do the implantation of the device. And then once the device is implanted, patients will be followed typically through a sleep disorder center. That's where the device will be activated and adjusted so that we can make sure that the sleep apnea is taken care of. Now, interestingly, some of the success rates for this type of therapy are really good. They report 90% of bed partners say that they either hear no more snoring or that they hear soft snoring. So there's a reduction in the amount of snoring that they hear. 91% of the people that have the Inspire therapy feel satisfied with it. There's a 79% reduction in the sleep apnea events. And that's an interesting number because everyone can have sleep apnea to a certain degree, and it doesn't necessarily warrant treating. So if you're still having a few events per hour while you're sleeping, that's not anything to really worry about. And that's the same with CPAP therapy. You can still have some sleep apneic events. It's just the overall number of events, we try to bring that number down as low as possible. And interestingly, 94% of Inspire patients say that it is better than CPAP and that they would recommend it to others. So it's a really interesting therapy. And now I just want to add some sort of practical comments just from my own personal experience in working with these patients. A lot of the patients compare their therapy to their Inspire therapy to their CPAP therapy. And it's really not that comparable, simply because with CPAP therapy and with some of the types of CPAP units that are available now, it will determine whether or not and what pressure you're receiving through your CPAP device based on the events that you're having. So for example, some of the units called auto-adjusting CPAPs will listen for snores and are able to detect airway instability. So they can increase the amount of airflow through the mask based on those events. Inspire is different. Inspire is every breath, every time. So it will be set at a specific voltage. And as you breathe, you receive that same voltage with each breath. And that's why patients are followed through the sleep disorder center, because initially you'll start out at a range of settings, and you work your way up through that range. Typically, we have patients increase their voltage maybe once every 3 to 5 days. And the reason we do that is because if you think about it, you're actually affecting a muscle group that really hasn't had a whole lot of work to do in the past. So you can't go from 0 to 10 and expect that these muscles are able to keep up. So you really sort of have to train these muscles over time to be able to react positively to the Inspire therapy. Some patients that will go up a little too fast will report that their throat is just really sore. And that's understandable because, like I say, it is a marathon, not a race, or not a sprint. So the implication with that is that over time, these muscle groups will become much better able to keep the airway open based on the voltage that they're receiving from the Inspire device. So patients are followed for several months through the Sleep Disorder Center. Initially, they're set at a range of 10 settings. The remote control that you receive with the device is very simple. And basically, to activate it and to make adjustments to it, you press the button on the corresponding button on the remote and just hold it to your chest or right over the device where it's implanted. And it sends that signal straight over and makes the adjustment. So there are a lot of different things that can be done with again, like with CPAP, with the voltage and the way the voltage is delivered. So if patients are initially uncomfortable with it, there are things that can be done to make it a little more comfortable and to adjust the way that voltage is delivered to the patient. So as with any therapy, when you're first starting out, if you're having issues, it's always important to talk to your primary care physician or the physician that is following you for that therapy to make sure that things are working like they should and to see if anything else can be done to make it more comfortable for you. I hope this has been interesting for you. Inspire therapy has always, since I first started seeing it, has always fascinated me. Not just because I'm a CPAP patient. And I've actually honestly thought about it myself, but I don't really have any problem wearing a CPAP. So if I don't have to have a surgery, then I won't do it. But it is something that a lot of patients will opt for. Insurances are becoming more and more amenable to paying for it just because they know the consequences of untreated sleep apnea. The people at the Inspire company can help work with you for your insurance company so that they can find ways to get that taken care of for you. So if you're interested, please check out inspiresleep.com. You can also do a Google search for Inspire therapy. Look at some of that stuff and see if it's something that's interesting for you. I would love to hear some of your experience. If you're someone who has opted for Inspire therapy, please reach out to me at j@somnilopod.com. You can also touch base with me through the regular media channels, the Instagram and the Facebook. If you have any other questions or if you have some comments or ideas for future episodes, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Again, that's j@somnilopod.com. And I hope until we talk next time, you are making sleep a priority. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.